He no longer knows his own name. He crawls through grass wet with dew, his nails grown long like birds' claws, his hair tangled like feathers. Once multitudes bowed before him. Now not even the beasts of the field see him as a threat. What's left of a man when everything he built, throne, army, glory, is torn away in a single instant by a voice that falls from heaven? This is not a fable about the fall of just any tyrant. It's the story recorded in the book of Daniel about Nebuchadnezzar, the king who raised Babylon to the top of the ancient world, and who, at the absolute height of his power, was brought down by something no army could stop. You're about to see the palace, the gold, the furnace, the dream no one could interpret. But the question that matters isn't what happened to him. It's another one, far more uncomfortable. What does it take to break a heart that no miracle could bend? Because here is what makes this story different from so many others. Nebuchadnezzar was not a man ignorant of God. He saw the impossible happen before his own eyes. He saw men walk unharmed through fire. He saw secrets revealed that no wise man on earth could decipher. And still, his pride held firm. If you think it only takes one miracle to make a heart surrender, this story is about to prove you wrong. There's something in this journey you may have already felt without ever putting it into words, the quiet certainty that what you've built belongs to you alone, the recognition you've earned, the stability you raised stone by stone. Didn't you do all of that on your own? Nebuchadnezzar believed this with the strength of an entire empire behind him. And it was exactly that certainty that needed to be broken. Who will give in first, the pride of a king or the God who rules over every kingdom on earth? The answer begins long before the fall, in a palace built on the banks of a river, when Babylon still seemed eternal.
On the banks of the Euphrates, where the desert gave way to civilization, rose a city that seemed to defy time. Babylon was not just the capital of an empire, it was living proof that a man could build something greater than his own mortality. Walls so wide that chariots could cross them side by side, temples covered in gold, hanging gardens rising over terraces as if nature itself had been tamed to serve the vanity of a king. Nebuchadnezzar walked these streets like a man walking through a masterpiece of his own making. He was not just the king of Babylon, he was the man who had turned it from a city into a symbol. Armies under his command had subdued entire nations. Vassal kings trembled at the mere sound of his name spoken in foreign courts. And yet something was stirring in the shadows of all that splendor, something the king himself could not yet perceive. Because while Nebuchadnezzar gazed upon his walls and his palaces, convinced that all of it had been born solely from the strength of his own arm, the God of heaven was already watching that heart swollen with certainty. Scripture does not record this pride as a mere character trait. It records it as a dangerous pattern that precedes every fall. It was not the grandeur of Babylon that would seal the king's fate. It was the way he came to relate to that grandeur, as something he owned, not as a gift on loan. There was still something the king did not know. Among the captives brought from a conquered city far away, a silent testimony had already been planted within his own court. A sign that the sovereignty he so proudly flaunted was not in any way absolute.
The fall of Jerusalem was not merely a military victory. It was a calculated blow against the identity of an entire people. Nebuchadnezzar besieged the city and carried off to Babylon not only the treasures of the house of God, but also the most promising young men of Judah, hand-picked for their appearance, wisdom, and potential. Among them were 4 names history did not yet know would become decisive: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The Babylonian strategy was precise. Conquering territory was not enough. Identities had to be remade. The young men were given new names, Babylonian, and were subjected to 3 years of complete immersion in the culture of the empire, fed from the king's own provision of delicacies. But there was one line Daniel refused to cross. He resolved in his heart not to defile himself with that food or that wine. It was not an act of rebellion, but of quiet conviction. He asked the official in charge to allow him, along with his 3 companions, to eat only vegetables and drink only water for 10 days, a risky request since the official himself feared for his own neck before the king. "Prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days," said Daniel. The official agreed, and at the end of the 10 days, the 4 young men were healthier and stronger than all the others who ate from the king's table. It wasn't only their bodies that responded to that quiet faithfulness. Scripture records that God gave these 4 young men knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. But to Daniel specifically, he gave understanding in visions and dreams. When, at the end of their training, they were presented to Nebuchadnezzar, the king himself examined them and found no one among all the wise men of the empire who could compare to them. 10 times wiser, the text records, than all the magicians and astrologers of Babylon. And so, without the king realizing it, the seed that would one day confront his pride had already been planted right at the center of his own court. All that was left was one sleepless night for that seed to begin to germinate.
One night in the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream that deeply troubled his spirit. When he awoke, he realized the content had slipped away. All that remained was the sense that something grave had been shown to him, though he couldn't recall what it was. He summoned the magicians, astrologers, and Chaldeans of the empire, demanding not only the interpretation, but the very content of the forgotten dream. An impossible demand for any human wisdom, and the wise men told the king exactly that. There was no one on the face of the earth who could reveal such a thing except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. The answer did not satisfy Nebuchadnezzar. On the contrary, it filled him with fury, and the king decreed that all the wise men of Babylon be put to death, without distinction, without exception. Among those condemned by that same decree, even though they had not been summoned before the king, were Daniel and his 3 companions. But Daniel did not react in panic. He went with counsel and wisdom to speak with the captain of the guard responsible for the execution, asking for time. And then, together with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they turned in supplication to the God of heaven, pleading for mercy concerning that mystery. During the night, the mystery was revealed to him in a vision. Brought before the king, Daniel claimed no credit for himself. "There is a God in heaven who reveals secrets," he declared. And then he described what Nebuchadnezzar had seen: a great image, terrible in appearance, a head of fine gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, feet of iron mixed with clay, and a stone, cut without the help of any hand, struck the feet of the statue and shattered it completely.
until that same stone became a mountain that filled the whole earth. Then Daniel turned directly to the king, and the words he spoke were not flattery, but revelation. "Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory." It was not the king who said this about himself, it was Daniel who said it about him, and there was an enormous difference between the two. Daniel went on, "After this kingdom would come others inferior to it, of silver, of bronze, of iron, until in the final days the God of heaven himself would raise up a kingdom that would never be destroyed." At this, Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face and worshipped before Daniel, acknowledging, "Of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods." He exalted him and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon. But something in this account remained unfinished. The king had received the revelation that his own kingdom, shining gold, would not last forever, and hearing this stirred in him not lasting submission, but a quiet and dangerous resolve to prove in his own way that gold could, in fact, last forever.
Time passed, and the confession Nebuchadnezzar had made before Daniel began to fade beneath the everyday glow of his own power. The king had a golden statue made, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and ordered it set up on the plain of Dura. This time, it would not be only the head that was gold, as in the dream. The entire statue would be gold, from top to bottom, a silent challenge hurled against the very revelation he had received. He then summoned princes, governors, judges, and all the officials of the empire for the dedication of the image. And the herald cried aloud. At the sound of the music, every people, nation, and language was to fall down and worship the statue. Whoever failed to do so would be cast that same hour into the burning fiery furnace. The music played, and the vast crowd without hesitation bowed down completely. But in the midst of that sea of bowed bodies, 3 men remained standing: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the same 3 companions of Daniel, now risen to positions of authority in the province. They did not move, they did not bow. Their refusal needed no words to be absolute. Some Chaldeans, watching closely for a chance to accuse, rushed to denounce them before the king. Nebuchadnezzar, seized with rage, ordered them brought before him. "Is it true that ye do not serve my gods, nor worship the image which I have set up?" he asked, his voice heavy with restrained fury. "If ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands?" The answer that came back asked for no mercy. "We are not careful to answer thee in this matter. Our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us. He will deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up." There was no bargaining in those words. No guarantee of rescue propped up that resolve. Only the certainty that, delivered or not, worship belonged to one God alone. The answer set the king's fury ablaze even further. The very form of his countenance changed, and Nebuchadnezzar ordered something beyond any cruelty before it, that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. The mightiest men in the army received the order to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and cast them, still dressed in their cloaks and robes, into the fire. The king's command was so urgent, and the furnace so exceedingly hot,
that the flame itself killed the soldiers who came too close to carry out the sentence. The 3 men fell, bound, into the heart of the burning fire. For a moment, it seemed as though that was where the story ended. 3 men who had dared to remain standing when an entire empire knelt. But Nebuchadnezzar, looking into the furnace, rose up quickly, astonished. He turned to the counselors around him and asked, "Did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" "True, O king," they answered. "But I," he said, his voice already changed by something beyond understanding, "see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God." The most powerful king in the known world approached the mouth of the furnace like a man approaching a mystery he dared not fully name. "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither." And they came forth. There was no smell of fire on their clothes. Not a single hair on their heads had been burned. The cloaks they wore remained untouched, as though the fire, 7 times hotter than usual, had never touched them at all. The princes, captains, and governors gathered around the 3 of them, staring at what their own eyes refused to accept. And Nebuchadnezzar, before the whole court, declared aloud, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, yielding their own bodies rather than serve or worship any god except their own God." Right then, the king decreed that no one in the whole empire should speak blasphemy against that God on pain of destruction. He acknowledged in public and solemn words that there was no other God able to deliver as that God had delivered. And yet, despite the acknowledgement, despite the astonishment, despite having seen with his own eyes what no human wisdom could explain, something in Nebuchadnezzar's heart remained untouched. The fire never touched the 3 servants who trusted in God, but somewhere ahead, a different kind of fire was waiting, not to test the faith of faithful men, but to reach the pride of a king who had not yet fully surrendered. Time passed, and Nebuchadnezzar, at rest in his house, flourishing in his palace, was once again visited by a dream that filled him with dread. He saw a tree in the midst of the earth, of immense height, so tall it reached to the sky, visible to the ends of the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant. Beneath it, the beasts of the field found shade, and in its branches the birds of the sky made their home. All flesh was fed by that tree. But then, still within the visions of the night, a watcher, a holy one, came down from heaven, crying aloud, "Hew down the tree, cut off its branches, leave only the stump with its roots, bound with a band of iron and bronze in the tender grass of the field. Let it be wet with the dew of heaven. Let his heart be changed, no longer the heart of a man, but the heart of a beast, and let 7 times pass over him." Summoned once again, Daniel listened to the account and stood astonished for a full hour, his thoughts troubled by the weight of what he had to say. "My lord," he said at last, "the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies. The tree thou sawest, O king, is thou thyself, who art grown and become strong, whose greatness has reached unto heaven. And the sentence that shall come upon thee is this: thou shalt be driven from among men, thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, They shall make thee eat grass as oxen, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will." Daniel went on to plead with the king to put an end to his sins through righteousness, and to show mercy to the poor, that perhaps his peace might be prolonged. But the warning found no fertile ground. 12 months passed, and the king's heart, instead of breaking, swelled once more. Walking through the royal palace, gazing at the walls he himself had ordered built, Nebuchadnezzar spoke, his mouth full of himself. "Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty?" The words were still on his lips when a voice fell from heaven. "To thee it is spoken, O King Nebuchadnezzar, the kingdom is departed from thee." There was no delay, no second chance, as there had been at the furnace. The sentence, announced 12 months before, was carried out that very hour, instant, irreversible, absolute. In that very hour, the voice fell from heaven. Nebuchadnezzar was driven from among men. He began to eat grass like oxen. His body was wet with the dew. His hair grew like eagle's feathers, his nails like a bird's claws. The king who had once decreed golden statues and fiery furnaces now wandered the fields without reason, without memory of who he had been, a man reduced to a condition he could never have imagined possible for himself. And it was Nebuchadnezzar himself who later recorded what happened there. Not some distant narrator recounting his disgrace, but the restored king writing in the first person to every people, nation, and language on earth. "I thought it good to shew the signs and wonders that the high God hath wrought toward me." He himself confessed, "And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me." In that entire confession, there is not one word of complaint about what he suffered. There is only the sober account of a man who, after losing everything, finally lifted his eyes, not to his own walls, not to the gold of his throne, but to the heaven he had ignored his whole life. "I blessed the Most High," he wrote, "and I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation." And then, not before, not after, but in that very instant of surrender, understanding returned to him. The dignity of his kingdom was restored to him. The counselors who had once abandoned him in the fields came looking for him again. He was re-established on the throne, and his glory, by his own words, was even greater than before. But the man who returned to the palace was not the same man who had left it. Because a king can lose his kingdom and win it back. He can lose his reason and have it restored. He can lose his glory and see it multiplied. But there is something that once it is truly broken, never goes back to what it was before, the place where the heart sets its own importance. Nebuchadnezzar closed his own testimony with the one sentence a man like him could only have written after being brought down from everything. "Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase." It was not a sage who wrote these words, not a prophet, nor a priest. It was the most powerful man on the ancient earth, the only one, perhaps, with authority enough to prove with his own life that no human throne stands above the throne that rules over all the others. Do you remember the question that opened this story?
What does it take to break a heart that no miracle could bend? Now you know the answer, and it isn't comfortable. It wasn't the furnace, it wasn't the dream of the statue, or the interpretation the king himself heard and recognized as true. It took everything being stripped away, throne, reason, dignity, name, for a gaze to finally lift to heaven instead of staying fixed on his own work. There's something deeply human in that resistance. You don't need to rule an empire to recognize Nebuchadnezzar's impulse. All it takes is having built something with your own hands, a home, a name, a routine of security, and feeling, even silently, that it belongs to you alone. Scripture doesn't condemn work or achievement. It confronts the illusion that the glory you've gained was born solely from your own strength. Maybe you've already seen a miracle in your own life and still, days later, slipped right back into that same quiet certainty that you're in control of everything. Nebuchadnezzar saw 3 men walk out of fire unharmed, and even so, it took 12 months for his own heart to even begin to move. God's grace is often unhurried. It waits, with a stern patience, for the moment when the eyes finally lift. And there's something deeply hopeful in this story. The king was not destroyed. He was broken in order to be restored. The fall wasn't the end. It was the door that led him, by his own words, to become someone with even greater glory than before. Maybe the real question isn't whether you, one day, will recognize who truly rules over everything. The question is whether that will happen through surrender or through ruin. And you, when in your life have you lifted your eyes to heaven before being forced to? Tell us in the comments which part of this story of fall and restoration touched you the most. Your answer might be exactly what someone else reading the comments needs to find today. If this story spoke to you, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like, not as an obligation, but as a gesture of gratitude for one more biblical truth that may have reached your heart today. And if the fall of a king showed you something about your own heart, just wait until you see the next story we're going to tell, because there are still more people, places, and moments in the Bible where heaven broke into earth in a way no one expected.